everyone. Welcome back to the Location Independence podcast, where we talk about everything location independence. I'm here with Robert, and Robert and I are going to talk today about, well, we're staying in the theme of essentially leveraging your money to finance your location independent lifestyle. Definitely, there's a lot of ways that you can become location independent. You can look for a job that doesn't really care where you work from. That's one way of doing it. But then you're always really tied to a certain time zone. So that may not be the best fit for you. Another way of doing it is, essentially diversifying your investments and becoming an investor. And so this is interesting for Robert and I because we're both investors, and investor is really a broad term. And we were talking before we recorded a little bit about like what our I guess it's something we haven't talked about, but how we personally diversify our investments and how that finances our life. And so today we're talking about diversification. So Robert, welcome. Thank you again, as always.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Michelle.
Sure. Okay. So just to get started, we're going to talk about diversification and, well, first, how you can leverage your investments to finance your location independence. I would say there's two types of investments. You have short-term there's a lot of types of investments, but you have short-term investments and you have long-term investments. And you have a short-term would be something like we've talked a lot about flipping properties. We've talked a lot about buying income properties, and those kind of actually range like both short and long term because they're paying dividends in the short term, but long term you intend to sell. Robert, what would you define as, or actually how would you categorize the different type of investments?
Well, I think that the way that I categorize investments is based on what level you're on, right? We all operate at levels, and you can level up, but depending on the level you're on, will depend on what resources you have access to, and that'll determine your approach and strategy. And so I would say, like, for me, I'm not buying and holding real estate. That's just not something that I do. I'm at a different level, so I have more resources that allow me to go deeper into the deal. So rather than buy the deal at the end and try to make appreciation, I want to be a part of the deal at the beginning, whether it be through the land sale or the development of the land, and then getting that land entitled. So getting it ready and permitted for development, and then either developing it myself or then selling the development. But then again, some people might not have that ability or those resources to play at that level. And so that's okay. There could be at another level. And at that level, you could invest in real estate as, hey, I've got enough to put 10 or 20% down on a second home. And I know that I can rent it out on Airbnb, or I can rent it out long term and create a capital appreciation or rental return. So and then also there's business investments, right? You can go start a business, and you may not have the money, but time is money. And if you have the time, then you can apply that time and transact, right? And create a business opportunity with the time that you do have to allocate. And then that's a way to create a passive income strategy. It may not be passive in the beginning because you have to create it, but once you've created it, and if you streamlined it and have the right people involved, then you have a passive income opportunity. And so different levels of investment, but I would break it up between real estate and then business, right? So that's my two buckets, real estate, business. And then real estate can be broken down further to development or buy and hold, or buy and flip. And then business could be start and hold, start and flip, or buy and hold, or buy and flip. So those are my strategies.
Okay. Yeah. And actually, I want to go back. You said something about if you don't have money. This is like such a broad statement because I got a call last week from someone. He had $100,000. It was so cute. He had $100,000 and he was like, I want to invest this $100,000 in real estate in the US. He's not American. He was like, I want to invest it in real estate in the US. And someone came to me with this offer. They're going to go in with me on it, and like we're going to buy this real estate and flip it or essentially rehabilitate it. So it was like a disaster of a residence. Rehabilitate it, and then we'll rent it long term, and eventually it'll have a value of this amount. And he was cute because he hadn't done any of his research. And like when I looked at all the comps in the area, I was like, oh sweetie, like you're about to get had. This is a bad deal. Because it was essentially like the guy was telling him that the property was worth $120,000 and it was only worth $20,000. And he told him that he would be able to resell it for $200, and the resale on it was $120. So it's like, it's altogether a bad deal. And I think he also told him that the rent they could get on it were like $1,500 a month. And I was like, $1,500 a month in that area gets you a 4-story house. And this is like 100 in square feet. It's like a 1,500 square foot single family, like ranch style home. I was like, that the same. Anyway, never mind. But my point is, he had that 100,000, and I came back to him and I said, okay, this is not a good deal for you, but let me come back with a couple of options for you. And I came back with a home that he could buy for 20,000. I said $80,000 will easily get it. The remaining 80,000 will easily get it into livable condition, and then you can rent it for $900 a month. Like, that is definitely a way to invest if you want to, if you specifically want to invest in rehabilitating a home. That will get you that $100,000 will get you $900 a month of recurring revenue, which if you're living in Thailand is enough. Like, this is already enough money literally to live on, which is crazy, which is mind blowing. But there are other things that you can do. My first investment was a piece of land in an area that I knew was developing. I knew, like, I happened to know the area, and I knew that it was going to be a hot spot. I bought that piece of land. I sat on it. In no time, there's a shortage of land, and I just reached out to 3 developers and I said, I have this piece of land. I know that it's a hot piece of land. Do you want to work with me to develop it? So that's another way that you could do it. I mean, it was $20,000, right? But if you don't have $20,000, let's talk at the bottom level. Like, I remember when I first started traveling, I met hippies, like total hippies, sitting making bracelets, and that's how they funded their travel lifestyle. They sold these bracelets for enough money to keep traveling. So, at every level, you can do it. It's just, what is your risk tolerance?
Exactly. And sometimes there is no risk except for, wasting your time. And again, I said time is money, so that's a waste of money. But at the same time, you have to take those risks in order to reap the benefits. And so I would say that, someone who comes in with no money and wants to start a real estate business, well, the United States, it makes it a little bit harder because subleasing terms are not as welcoming, say, as Dubai, right? So, but in Dubai, you can literally go get a house and rent, you can rent a house and then sublet it, right, on Airbnb and make a profit. Now, you will need a little bit of money to put down because, of course, any rental requires a down payment. And in Dubai, you pay in checks. So you pay 12 months in advance. It'll take the money 12 months in advance from you, but you do write checks for 12 months. And so, but someone with limited cash reserves would be able to come into Dubai, rent a place that they don't own and sublet it. So you can be creative. I mean, I've sold Christmas trees before, like literally 10 plus years ago, more than that. I had a Christmas tree lot and I did it 3 years in a row. And it came up with an idea of like, hey, it's October. Yeah, it was October. And I was like, I was looking for a business opportunity. I like business opportunities. And I saw, okay, how much can I sell Christmas trees for? And so I got on Google and I called a Christmas tree lady, Nadine White, a white Christmas tree farm. And I went to the mountains and I met with her. I never knew Christmas trees, never sold a Christmas tree in my life, but she gave me the knowledge that I needed. I bought the best quality trees and I started selling them for $25. The same tree that I was selling for $25 were selling for $60 everywhere else around me. And it was a better quality tree. I'd bring people in with the $25 tree, and a lot of people bought the $25 tree, but then a lot of people also bought the $60 and $100 tree. That's how I was able to sell Christmas trees and make a profit during, find a seasonal business. So they're seasonal businesses, and you can follow those seasonal businesses through different countries because different countries have seasons at different times. Or as like you just said, you could sit on the beach and make bracelets and sell those bracelets and make enough money to live. So there is no excuse. Like, you can make money and you can build a business, and you can build a big business, a small business, or just a business that supports your daily lifestyle. It's up to you and your drive and determination, because outside of that, you don't need anything else. Everything else will come to you if you hustle accordingly. You have to strategize, but if you do it right, you don't need the money. You just need the hustle and the drive and determination and the ability to be resilient and to get a no 100 or 1,000 times and be able to come back until you get that yes. And so that's the difference. And you've heard many people say it who have experienced success.
Yeah, and I want to say, like, it's also a bit of knowing yourself, right? Like, I know that I'm lazy. I'm inherently lazy. So if I have enough money to have a comfortable lifestyle, to buy the things that I want to buy, I'm going to sit where I am. But if I put my money on the line for something, if I put myself in a position where I need more money, literally the money, I don't know how it comes. It comes out of thin air. I find the money for it. And I had another friend who did this recently. She bought a property. She put the down payment of 100,000. And she said, okay, I have 6 months to come up with the remaining 150,000. And I said, that's crazy. It took you 3 years to save 100,000. And now you have 6 months to come up with the remaining 150,000. But I knew her, and I knew that she's exactly like I am. And I knew that she was going to find that 150,000. And I think the last month before before the money was due. She still didn't have it. She had like 30,000 of it. And in 1 month, she managed to pull out of nowhere $120,000. She didn't do anything illegal. She just was like, crap, I have to make $120,000 in 1 month. And she did it. But you need to know if you're that kind of person. If that is like way too stressful of a life for you, if that is not how you want to live, then think about other businesses. Think about what you can do. I know people who I've met who are digital nomads, and they're working on Upwork.com. They're copywriters, they're translators, they are business consultants, graphic designers, whatever you would do in your normal life. They're doing this on Upwork. If you're a doctor, we've talked about like, can you then like go online and be an online doctor? It exists, but this is a different topic entirely. This is not diversifying your portfolio. So today we're really talking about people who want to invest in something and diversify that and the importance of it. So when I started my business, well, it was technically my second business, but when I first started my business, my Suryami, my Airbnb management company, I started in New York, and I had goals of going to all these different locations and doing all of these different things. And it was crazy. Like I was delusional because it was so much work to get one city. New York City is a big city to take on. So it was so much work getting that off the ground, that it was actually 5 years in before I even was able to launch another market. But when I did launch the second market, my second market was Miami. And by having New York and Miami, I was able to catch like the flip seasonality. So up until then, every winter, I knew that my business was going to lose money, and that I needed to go into winter having pretty much enough money to cover 2 months of salaries already in the bank, because I knew that I was just going to lose that much money all winter. Then I added the Miami, and that wasn't a problem anymore. So then I had money coming in. Yeah. So I essentially had money coming in at all seasons, which is amazing. That just like alleviated a lot of pressure. And I was able to keep going. So last week we spoke with Paul, who has homes in 3 different time zones. He did
Yeah,
this
you
not
diversify.
because he was trying to be strategic. He did it because as a traveler, and it's the same for me. Sometimes you want to be in Latin America, sometimes you want to be in Asia, sometimes you want to be home in North America. And so that's why he chose those locations. And Robert and I were talking, and we actually primarily diversify our investments through businesses. And so I have a handful of businesses that I invest in. So I do invest in real estate, but I also invest in my own business, Suryami. I have a hotel marketing company, which is in case you have a hotel and you need help marketing, we can help you there. I also am working on a marketplace for extended stay rentals, which I'm super excited about when it comes out. And on top of that, I have a boutique clothing company. So like I really have started to hit every market. Um, exactly. And it doesn't happen overnight. It's not something that you can do overnight. Like I said, when I started with Suryami, I was delusional to think that I could get like more than one market off the ground right away. I really had a steep learning curve. It was 5 years before I could do anything else. Robert, you got into actually, can we rewind and talk a little bit about how you even got into business? What it started like? Because I think the story is amazing.
Yeah, I moved out at 15 and I dropped out of high school sophomore year. It was the first semester. And I went to the mall, and there's these Israelis that they have the kiosk in the middle of the mall, and they try to approach you and sell you things that you don't need. They're really good at doing it too. It's stuff that you buy for $60 or $30. You sell it for 120% markup. It breaks after Christmas. And then they leave my brother and I there to take the returns, and there is no returns. Um,
Okay.
but
Not the kind of ethical business you want to get into, just
No,
FYI.
but it was perfect for us at the time, because I looked at the business and I said, hey, most of the people you have working for you, if not all of them, are on tourist visas, and that's illegal. And I was like, I'm 15. I have a twin brother. He's 15, and we're illegal in a way because in the United States, you can't work full time at 15 years old. And so he says, I like the way you think, and I got a job for you. And he says, I'll pay you 20% commission, but it's commission only. And then, I'll give you a place to live. So my brother and I, we lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with 7 Israelis. And we would get picked up every morning by the boss, Itav. And he would drive like all of us to drop us off at the mall. And you'd see this like 1990 Lincoln Town Car, like just the back seat, the dragging on the ground because we've got like 5 or 6 people in the back seat. But that taught me so much about business and life. And the one thing I'll say, going back to what you were saying about like, hey, you wanted to go into New York and you had all these big aspirations. Human nature is instant gratification, and everybody wants it right away. And that's okay because it's human nature, right? I call it first thought, second thought. Like you can't control your first thought, but you can control your second thought. So like the first thought, for instance, is innate reaction, fight or flight. The second thought can change if you apply the data. But if you don't, then that first thought will take off and it'll just skyrocket to the same thought, but it'll just explode into a negative impact on your life and your business and everything around you. So it's very important to be able to understand the first thought, second thought process, to be able to stop the first thought with the second thought, which is the data, right? And so the first thought is like, hey, I wanted to get into New York City and do this business and take over this market. The data came back and said, hey, this isn't how easy it is. It's going to take time. You said 5 years. So you were younger at the time. And when I was younger at the time, when I moved out, like who would have moved out of their house, out of structure, food, like shelter at the age of 15 with no idea where you're going to find that, right? And no education. And so you're just out there. Well, if I was older, I would have never done that, right? Because I would have thought too hard about it. I would have been like, oh, that's not going to work. This is not going to work. That's not going to work. And so I would have just texted. Well, when you're younger, you take risks. And so you took the risk of going into New York City to start a business, which most people will never do. Then you found out based on the data that, okay, this is going to take longer. But your human nature wanted that instant gratification of success overnight, but you were able to take that first thought and kill it with the second thought of like, okay, this is going to take time and I've got time and I'm going to slow down. I'm going to invest my time in the right places. I'm going to learn. We all pay to go to school, most in a university setting, others in life. Life is a better ROI, but life costs money just like the university costs money. The joy of life is when you spend money, you're spending money on an experience. And sometimes, and most of the time when you're spending money, in this instance, it's a loss. And, you can chalk it up to education. So if you go spend $100,000 a year at Harvard or whatever that is, and you lose $100,000 in your business, I can guarantee you the loss of $100,000 in your business is going to be more powerful for your future success than spending $100,000 at Harvard to be told about a story, to be read a story, rather than live it. Right? In the real life, right?
And honestly, this is again diversifying, right? Like you can invest your money in a luxury education, and it's going to do something for you. I'm not gonna lie. Like everybody knows, you go to Harvard, you go to Stanford, you graduate with a network of friends that is going to
Network. That's all
instantly
that's
help
worth.
you achieve. Yeah,
Network.
yeah.
That's
Huge amount of debt if you don't have family that can pay for it. A huge amount of debt. You didn't necessarily learn anything better than everybody else, but you graduated with an amazing network. And honestly, you did graduate with people look at you with a little more respect. I went to UC Santa Barbara, which the University of California system is top tier on the West Coast. I don't think it's as internationally renowned as Harvard, Cambridge, but sorry to interrupt. But my point is this is part of diversifying, right? That your college education, if you choose to invest in it, is an investment. It is going to do something for you. It's just whether or not you choose to. And actually, can I ask a very personal question, Robert? Did you go to college in the end?
I did not.
And look at you.
Yeah. And that's the joy of it. One, I was so young, I was able to take risks that normally people wouldn't take. Two, I was able to apply the common sense that I've acquired through living life. And so that's the joy of like, I didn't have to go to college or finish high school to understand how to start a business. I had to be a consumer, and we're all consumers, whether we go to school or not. We consume something, and the way that we consume is based on psychology. So if we apply psychology to the consumption aspect of human nature, it's very easy to create business or opportunities around that, right? So like my first business that I created was a mobile auto repair company. It's my oldest business in my portfolio. It's 16 years old now, okay? And without that business, I would have never been able to create the wealth required to start other businesses. But like you, it took 5 years. It also took me 5 years to learn. Right. But I started Proficient Auto with zero money. Okay. It's one of my best performing businesses. It's created a lot of opportunity for me because I've been able to invest and start other businesses. I have 4 companies in my portfolio now. I wouldn't have been able to do that without the knowledge, expertise, and the funding that I was able to create from running Proficient Auto, a mobile auto repair company. So, but I started that business with no money. I went to Craigslist. I put an ad. Well, first off, I had a friend who got out a NASCAR Tech, which is a school for fixing cars. And I said, how much? I said, would you fix people's cars at their house if I put it on, marketed it? He said, yes. So I went on Craigslist when Craigslist was a good website. It was solid.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. And I was able to put an ad up, save 50% on auto repair. We come to you. And the first week we did $3,000 in revenue, labor revenue. So
There
no
you
parts,
go.
just labor. Yeah, it's God and hustle,
Amazing.
but it's common sense. I knew as a consumer that people need their car fixed. I thought that, hey, the problem is that it's inconvenient and it's expensive. So my solution will be convenience and affordability. And I'll pay the mechanics more money to deliver a better quality of service at your location. I'll charge you less money, and I'll make more money than my friends who own auto repair businesses because I have a mobile shop, one, and two, I'm doing volume, and I'm not closed by 3 or 4 bays. I can go out of van and travel the country or travel the city or
Right.
multiple
And you
cities.
don't have the overhead of
Exactly. And so I had to be strategic because I was at a position where I didn't have resources because I moved out of my house at 15. And then, I'm just making as I go. And so if I can do that, then anybody can do it. I'm not special. I dropped out of high school. Like most of you have finished high school and a lot of you have gone to college or finished some sort of, college. So you have more than I did starting out. So if I can do it with less, then you can do it with more, or you can do it with less. It's up to you, but it can be done. And it's about levels. So again, people say, Robert, you own real estate related companies. I do. I have 2 portfolio companies that are real estate related. One's a real estate brokerage that we all talk about with Dubai and the US. And then the other is a marketing company for real estate. People would think that, Robert, you must be super invested in real estate, but I'm not. I'm invested. I'm working on a development project in Boca. I like to do development, but I'm not buying and holding real estate. It's a waste of my money and my time. It's not a waste of some other people's money and time because it's about levels. And when you get to a certain level, you're not going to go buy $100 or $200 or $500,000 rental property and hold on to it because it doesn't make sense for your portfolio. You're going to go buy a commercial building because you've leveled up. And so I've leveled up to where I invest in businesses. My money is going to come back so much farther. It's going to go so much farther in business than it is if I put it in a piece of real estate. And if you don't have money to pay all cash in real estate, then real estate still, it's not the best investment for you because unless you are starting out with nothing, meaning you can go get a mortgage and you can live in that house and you can live in that house for 5 or 7 or 10 years and pay your mortgage. And the first couple years, you're not going to be paying anything from the principal and you're going to have your mortgage insurance, your taxes and everything. So if you look at it from an investment point of view, it's a bad investment. But if you look at it from a point of view of, I don't have any other way to make money, but I can live in this house and I have to pay rent somewhere, so might as well pay it to own something. And even if you're not paying off a lot of principal in the first 5 years of the home ownership, you're still getting capital appreciation. And even when you go sell that house and you make $50,000, well, if you add up how much you made in mortgage payments, you didn't make $50,000 anymore. But because you're at a different level, in your mind, you can say, oh, I made $50,000. And even though that that $50,000 basically covered your expenses of that house for as long as you were in it, it's still $50,000 more than you had when you started, right? So it is a wash, but it's not because it's $50,000 more than you had. And now you can go take that 50 and go into another investment, whether it be real estate or your own small business, or you could put it into a commodity or a stock, right?
I was going to stop there. And when you do invest, I do think you should start to put it into something else. And a lot of people get stuck in this. I only invest in this region, or I only invest in this type of asset. So I only do real estate investments. But it's self-limiting, and it doesn't have to be a rule. It's true. You should only invest in what you know, genuinely. If you don't understand something like this poor guy that came to me with this real estate, if you don't understand something, don't invest in it, because it's a good way to get in a bad situation. But Robert, like, look at you. You came with don't even have high school education, but you educated yourself in a lot of different areas. And so I don't want to say you need to educate yourself. You need to educate yourself, whether that's sitting with people, whether that's reading books, whether that's all of the above. I read everything every morning. Like, I spend a good 1 to 2 hours every morning reading industry news to see what's happening in industry, to try and get a pulse on what's going on. And this feeds into a lot of my recommendations later in the day when people come to me with questions. So
it's key. It's key for your brand. So, and I don't want to take away from that, but I do want to tell you like a brief little story. When I was 18, my first real estate client was a father of a son that I was hanging out with. And I saw they had money because his dad had a Ferrari. And I said, hey, does your dad want to meet and talk about how he could help you create a nest egg for your future? And he's like, no one's ever asked me that before, but he got a meeting with his dad. And the first time I met his dad, because I read every day, I'm not a mortgage guy. I'm not a finance guy. I don't know the numbers, but because I read industry knowledge, I was able to know that the interest rate was whatever percent it was that day. And because I was able to tell the father of Lou, but because I was able to tell Lou the interest rate that day, he did business with me. And he didn't tell me that day, but later on he said, Robert, the reason that I did business with you is because you knew the interest rate. Now that sounds so minuscule, but
No, but it's
it's
not.
industry.
This is
It's not.
it.
It's industry data, and if you have it, then you win. And you'll always be taken serious. It's your brand. You want to be known as the person that knows not everything, but knows enough. And if you don't know it, you know someone who does know it. That's your brand. So I think it's great that you do that. And anybody else who's listening to this, you can read and learn. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to be told by a teacher. What does a teacher do? Read from a book and then shares with you their own experience based on what they're reading. That's all. And now you have online, you can go find people who live that same experience and tell you what they've experienced. And
And if
you
you
want
want
to,
to be a teacher, you can be a teacher online.
yes, exactly. And make more money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. There's one of my best friends. She's going to be on the show later. She has a daughter. Who is, I believe, she just turned 9, and she's a single mom and location independent, and her daughter is enrolled in online school, so she still has consistency. She's still going to school. She still has friends. They're just online friends. And then when she's local, she's meeting people locally and having local experiences. Um, but yeah, so this is awesome. I love it. I feel like we got a little bit off topic, but I hope that some people that you picked something up from this. One other thought that I had as you were speaking, and I think this is why, Robert, you and I connect so much, is that when I talk about diversifying, it's not just diversifying your assets, it's not just diversifying your region, it's not just diversifying your education. You can also and should also, I believe firmly, diversify your social circle. And so I remember I was like, I want to say 10 years ago, I sat down for drinks with a friend, and another friend passed by on the street. And the friend that I was sitting down with was wealthy, grew up wealthy, went to the best school. And the friend who passed by, she was a nanny. She had no aspiration greater than to be a nanny. She loved her work. And he was like, why aren't you hanging out with her? She's a nanny. Like, she's not elevating your social status. And I said, I don't care. She's an amazing person. She would never say something that critical about you as you just said about her. And honestly, she's brought joy into my life, and she's changed the way that I think, because I like, by having friends in every part, in every facet of life, you're able to see things from every different viewpoint. And these different viewpoints, they're like little pieces of data, and they feed your knowledge, and they feed everything that you believe and understand. And it keeps you out of that kind of silo. Like, we see so many people get into a silo where they think this is the way the world is, because they just have a bubble that they live in with, their friends who all think the same way. And when you also diversify your social circle or your region or whatever, you start to think outside of that.
Agree with you. I have a twin brother, so we have kind of the same. I don't know if it's the same exact DNA or whatever, but we have a lot of similarities, right? Where he's identical, and I've traveled the world and I do business around the world. He's been to one country where his wife is from, and that's it. And he stays in the United States. He very rarely travels throughout the country, and and I love him with all my heart. I'm so proud of him, the way we do business differently, and I admire the way that he does business. But the way that he thinks about life and approaches life and business is completely different than the way that I do it, and it's because of the world travels. And I promise you, my children are world travelers, and they will continue to be throughout their life, because it creates so much character and value. It creates a value system that is lacking here in the United States. And value and tradition and culture is one of the most powerful and important aspects of the human connection. And so I feel like traveling internationally opens your mind up, it teaches you so much, and allows you to understand so much from so many different people and walks of life, that it just makes you a better person all the way around. It makes you react better to life. It helps you help others better. And it allows you just to see the beautiful world that's been created for us, right? And all the different people in it. So it's so important to travel. So sorry to take you away from that, but I did want to
No,
say,
no,
hey,
no.
I have a scientific experiment that shows it.
It's another form of diversification. And I even had this conversation with a friend. We got into a very sticky political conversation, A lot of people want to shy away from politics, and in this particular case, I said I don't want to shy away from this conversation. I want to speak with her about it because she held a very limited viewpoint on this one political aspect. And I said, I respect you and I completely see where you're coming from, but you've never left your country. And until you leave your country, it's really hard to see what the rest of the world looks like. And when you diversify your worldview, you also understand that different people see things in different ways. And those different ways that they see things you can take the same thing. I just offered you a cup of coffee. Well, depending on where you're coming from, that could be a sweet gesture. It could mean you want something from me. It could mean I need to now offer you money for that coffee. It could mean you now have to give me something in return, right? So like something as minute as offering a cup of coffee can be perceived in so many different ways. And so it's really, again, diversification, diversify your portfolio, diversify your friends, diversify your education, diversify your location. And this is
Diversify your thought process.
Yes, diversify, like continue to expand your mind, right? Like learning, everybody talks about we should be lifelong learners. Lifelong learners doesn't necessarily mean you sit at home and play Roku games. Like it can mean you get on a plane and you go travel the world and you don't take that tour. Instead, you stay somewhere and have a local experience. And
Get
that's
uncomfortable. That's what I have to say, is get
yeah.
uncomfortable and enjoy it and embrace uncomfortability, right? Because
It's
that's what you
amazing.
need to get to the next level. And if you don't get uncomfortable, then you're not going anywhere. I can guarantee that. And it doesn't have to be get uncomfortable and go invest money. It doesn't have to be get uncomfortable and go find a new job or move. It literally can be get uncomfortable and go eat dinner by yourself. Go sit at the bar by yourself. Go take a small trip by yourself. Get uncomfortable. And when you do that, you'll grow exponentially in business and in life and spiritually as well. So get uncomfortable.
And if you're a YouTube watcher, there's a channel called I forget what they call it, but their hashtag is Seek Discomfort, and I love it. And they really do in so many different ways. And I will find it and link to them, just because I think it's really cool. But Robert, this has been amazing. Thank you as always so much.
No, thank you.
Anything else you want to add before we go?
Just get uncomfortable.
Get uncomfortable or seek discomfort.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Robert. Have a good one. Thank you,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.